evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
The big stories tonight. For a third time, Senator Jinggoy Estrada is charged with plunder and could be arrested soon. The Office of the Ombudsman says there is solid evidence the lawmaker was involved in the flood control scandal.
Then there is the legal battle of Senators Bato de la Rosa and Robin Padilla. One is still nowhere to be found, while another has a looming charge for obstruction of justice.
Speaking of Senator Padilla, he is once again the target of criticism. Many are schooling the Senate's Basic Education Vice Chair about the meaning of force majeure.
Our case is built on solid, immovable evidence.
If this is the price that I have to pay for standing on my own principles of what I believe in, so be it.
As promised, the Office of the Ombudsman has filed plunder and graft charges against Senator Jinggoy Estrada before the Sandigan Bayan. This is in connection with alleged kickbacks he received from state-funded flood control projects. The amount, over ₱500 million. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos has tonight's big story.
8 months ago, during the height of hearings on the flood control scandal, Senator Jinggoy Estrada personally asked contractor Curly Discaya if there was a senator in the supposed list of kickback recipients.
Mr. Discaya, sa dami-dami mong binanggit na pangalan na kongresista, salang tanong ko, Senador, meron ba?
Your Honor, wala po.
It fetched this unforgettable line from then Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman Rodante Marcoleta.
So, safe ka na.
Of course, Estrada resented the joke and asked that it be stricken off the hearing records. Fast forward to Thursday, May 28th, Estrada is at the center of a plunder and graft complaint related to the flood control scandal filed by the Office of the Ombudsman before the Sandigan Bayan. Assistant Ombudsman Nico Clavano personally appeared before the anti-graft court to file the cases. Also named respondents were ex-Public Works Secretary Manuel Bonoan and local engineering officials from the NCR. Ex-DPWH Undersecretary Maria Catalina Cabral was dropped from the case by the reason of her passing, while former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo, DPWH NCR Regional Director Gerard Opulencia, and Bulacan 1st District Engineer Henry Alcantara have also been excluded from the case. That's following their official admission into the Witness Protection Program or WPP. Estrada was dragged into the controversy after former DPWH Engineer Bryce Hernandez accused him of receiving kickbacks from flood control projects which the senator denied. The allegations claim that the respondents conspired to maneuver allocations, rig public bidding processes, and siphon government funds of major national infrastructure budgets. Clavano said the investigation yielded information that 573 million pesos in kickbacks was systematically delivered to Estrada alone.
Our case is built on solid, immovable evidence. These state witnesses have provided comprehensive, cross-corroborated sworn statements that map out the execution of this scheme from its inception down to the logistics of the illicit payouts.
Estrada, Bonoan, and their co-accused are facing detention if the court orders their arrest. Plunder is an unbailable offense, thus state prosecutors have recommended no temporary freedom for Estrada and Bonoan. To preserve the integrity of the proceedings, the Ombudsman has asked the Sandigan Bayan to issue a whole departure order. Recall that as early as February this year, Estrada and Bonoan were already barred from leaving the country. The Justice Department has secured a precautionary whole departure order against them. Estrada and Bonoan have yet to respond to the complaints. But in Tuesday's session, the senator was asked about the looming case against him.
Well, if this is the price that I have to pay for standing on my own principles of what I believe in, basta ang alam ko, sabi ng LGU, wala akong assertion, nakatulad ng sinasabi nila, ng first Blue Ribbon Hearing Committee, or yung binulgar ni Bryce Hernandez sa House na meron ako insertion. Wala silang record na ako ay may insertion ko.
Clavano, however, said this is not enough for the senator to claim innocence.
The office acknowledges that the LBRMO, Legislative Budget Research and Monitoring Office, has issued a certificate regarding the absence of documented initiation of budget insertions by the respondent. However, this certificate does not capture all stages of the budgetary process, wherein insertions may be made in a layered method.
This is the third time Estrada has been slapped with a plunder charge. He first faced the criminal offense in 2001 when he and his father, former President Joseph Estrada, were accused of conspiring to acquire hidden wealth amounting to 4 billion pesos from wetting operations, kickbacks from tobacco, excise taxes, and stock manipulation. The elder Estrada was found guilty while Jinggoy was acquitted for lack of evidence. And then in 2014, Senator Estrada was charged with plunder and graft over pork barrel scam. He was acquitted though of plunder in 2024, but his graft cases are still pending. Aside from Estrada, Ombudsman Boying Remulla has also announced that charges will soon be filed against Senator Joel Villanueva, also over the flood control scandal. The Ombudsman is also currently investigating former Senate President Chis Escudero. Senator Rodate Marcoleta, meanwhile, has been slapped with his own plunder and indirect bribery complaints for allegedly receiving 75 million pesos in cash gifts during the campaign season.
The Ombudsman is determined to pursue all cases still pending. We have one shot to get these cases right. The Filipino people need to see justice. This office is here to make sure we deliver just that.
Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Now, meantime, senators are engaged in discussion even outside plenary session. It began when Senator Robin Padilla wondered in a post whether Middle East tensions and a potential China-Taiwan conflict qualify as force majeure or acts of God or nature. Then, without naming names, Senator Ping Lacson replied with a tweet, and we quote, "Hindi po ito force majeure, iyan po ay unforced error," end quote.
This exchange stems from a heated debate in the Senate last Tuesday when Senator Rodante Marcoleta put forth a proposal to allow virtual attendance during plenary sessions. Force majeure is among the few justifiable reasons for an online Senate session. For Senator Risa Ontiveros, she warns that wars overseas cannot be considered force majeure in the Philippines setting. Further, she said such crises should be the perfect reason for senators to show up to work. Meantime, in an interview on Good Morning Kapatid, Senator Erwin Tulfo also shared his thoughts.
The last time I checked sa dictionary, force majeure is like uncontrollable situation caused by, it is defined as like a disaster. It's like natural disaster. Yung El Nino, pero I don't know how should it affect na kailangan hindi pumasok ang isang senador dahil mainit.
With at least 5 sitting senators facing criminal charges, what will be its implications on the Senate as an institution? Let's discuss this with former Senator Richard Gordon. Good evening, Senator. Welcome to the Big Story.
Good evening, Seth. Good evening to all you big storytellers.
Salamat at nagiging suki namin kayo.
Thank you.
But the first question, with all these senators facing charges, how do you see the Senate functioning? What if they end up in jail?
Well, if they end up without bail, if they're charged with plunder, they will be without bail and they will immediately be arrested, which diminishes the ranks of the Senate. It's going to be harder to get a quorum. But in that case, I'm sure there will be self-medication on the part of the Senate because by that time everybody will be on watch that if they have cases to hide, it might come out. So the Senate will have to come out and, I suppose, make adjustments on the rules. Because in that case, even if the Constitution says 24 senators, and that to have a quorum, we have majority of that 24. When there's no more 24 members, then the Senate will have to make adjustments, and this should be an extraordinary event, which of course is subject to challenge in the Supreme Court. But the Senate cannot exist within a vacuum. So they will probably come out with rules that will allow adjustment for that event.
You know, Senator Marcoleta has been charged with plunder, and this is a non-bailable offense. And the amendment he was proposing to the rules would, well, benefit him as well.
That is correct. That's why it's so indecent. The sense of delicadeza is gone. There's no dignity in the Senate. You know, it's just like President Duterte, when he found out that somebody had filed a case against him in the ICC, immediately for his own interest, he withdraws the Philippines. Now Marcoleta is practically doing the same thing. He will make sure that people can vote even if they're under duress, or not under duress, but under submission. So talaga yan. This is the hallmark of the strategy, unfortunately, of some of our senators. Their end objective is to make sure that the impeachment is derailed or is delayed. And with their majority, it will be harder to get evidence presented because the majority will always say, no, we do not approve of it. So it's important that the people see right through it. Justice, dignity, and decency and integrity has to be the hallmark of a Senate, which is a nationally elected Senate. When we were young, we were told that this was a senior house. And therefore, equality must remain. Unfortunately, it has been thrown out of the window, and impunity has replaced impartiality. Yung ginagawa ni Marcoleta, impunity yan. Because una-una, ang lakas-lakas ng ebidensya sa kanya, and he admitted it on several TV interviews and radio interviews. So it's what lawyers call admission against interest, no? Which can be used in any court of law.
The case against him is rather unusual, and if you could put your lawyer's hat on, the case is plunder, and it involves campaign contributions made prior to him filing his candidacy as senator, although he was at that point a sitting congressman. So, and the COMELEC actually gave him a pass on that disqualification case. So ano po ang sa tingin ninyo ay, well, he's claiming that this is a political, it's a political hatchet job against him.
It cannot be a political hatchet job because the law is very clear. When you're a congressman, even if walang kapalit, tumanggap ka ng malaking amount, you'll be liable. Because obviously the law looks at the future and sees, nang magdideposit ako sa'yo para later on, kung may problema ako, tutulungan mo ako. That's why it's very, very clear na mahuhuli siya. It would have been better for him to say, oh, it was an election one. Tinanggap ko in aid of my election. Because at least mas may wiggle room siya sa COMELEC. Pero pati yun, sinabi niya, hindi election offense. So, really, he practically tied himself into a corner, and now he has to answer for that. Very hard to wiggle out of that.
All right, Senator Gordon, I want to go back to possibly losing 5, even 6 senators if the ICC indeed has an arrest warrant for Bongo. That's a lot. What are the scenarios that could happen after? Could they recount like the 1/2, or what makes up the majority? With the impeachment, they'll have to recalibrate the votes from 16 to a lower number. But will these all need to be tackled by the Rules Committee and just stop at that, meaning no need to confer with another constitutional body, since the Senate itself is also a constitutional body?
Well, first of all, it's going to be very hard to refer anything to the Rules Committee because although there was a referral earlier, the Committee on Rules has not been instituted. So, problema yan. Pangalawa, if they are going to pursue the charges against these folks, they would have to reckon with the shortages of senators, right? So, they would have to, the law, like I said, abhors a vacuum. Hindi pwedeng palagi may hahanap tayo ng solution dyan. And that solution will always be controversial because you can say there are still 24 senators, although some of them are suspended, and they might count it on the basis of the original 24, or they might count it on the current number of senators. That will be a long, long conversation and subject to so many questions. Maybe it might even reach a judicial review sa Supreme Court.
Okay, because 'di ba, for example, yung iba nakasuhan dito sa Pilipinas, so syempre matagal yung trial. So technically they're not yet convicted, and in which case they're still, kumbaga, they still have the right to hold office, 'di ba, until conviction. And then parang nakakulong sila, so hindi sila makakaboto. Yeah. How does that complicate things?
Well, that may be true, but in the case of Marcoleta, in the case of Estrada, and possibly the case of Joel Villanueva, and possibly even in the case of Cheese, sorry, I have to mention their names. When you're charged with plunder, that means that you don't have any bail. So, sorry, wala kang bail. So, di ka talaga makakaboto.
That's the long and short of it.
Right.
Klaro yun. In the case of Senator De Lima kasi, you know, she wasn't allowed. She wasn't allowed to vote. And even later on, she was cleared of all those charges.
Yeah, because ang pangyayari nga dyan, in
May
the case of...
president na. Even
Right.
Senator
The Senate
Trillanes.
themselves, ganun rin si Trillanes. Hindi pwede because at that time, Trillanes was in Bonifacio, I think, or Crame, or Aguinaldo. And he was
Crame, yeah.
trying to get permission to his equipment, even up to the point na hanggang hearings lang. Pero hindi pa rin pinayagan.
Well, Senator, under the Senate rules, it's pretty clear, that electronic or remote voting can be done when there is force majeure or under a national emergency. But what do you have to say about what Senator Robin Padilla said online, on whether the Middle East tensions and the Taiwan and China war could count as force majeure?
Include El Nino.
Yes.
It's an act of God, Maybe ang logic niya, because we're created by God, that becomes an act of God. But that's not the case. Force majeure is a national emergency brought about by forces beyond our control. It could not be foreseen, or which though foreseen are inevitable. Yun ang definition sa civil code. No? So, ibig sabihin, hindi papasok yun doon because yung COVID, understandable. And I cannot even extend beyond COVID. It has to go back because that's the rule. They have to be present in the Congress. Unang-una, when you are there, you can see the demeanor of witnesses. You can see whether they're lying, di ba? It's like you guys, you prefer that we go to the studio. It's much better for rapport. It's much better good for conversation. But in the matter of Congress, where you're discussing national issues with national criminal implications, mahirap kung wala ka doon. So, it's almost like hindi mo nakikita yung nagsasabi, hindi meron kung ano. And we lawyers, we always want to see what is going on when he is explicitating, no? Yun ang problema nga eh. So, sometimes we talk about it. More talk, more mistake. Less talk, less mistake. No talk, no mistake. That was very famous a long time ago. One senator from my province was even accused of that. Or he said that. No? So in this particular case, mali si Robin yan. I have to commend the ombudsman because many of these people were confreres of the ombudsman. So napakahirap sa isang politiko is to be able to file a charge against somebody who you're with in a Congress. So, hindi na bibino si ombudsman dito na mga kasama niya dati. Sila Escudero, sila Villanueva, and others, no? And Marcoleta. And yet, he decided to file a case against them which is very, very hard in the sense in our society. Yung nga eh, no one is above the law. Dapat yun ang tatandaan, ituturo sa eskwela yan. Kahit na sino ka pa, you're not above the law. Kahit na tatay mo, presidente, hindi ka pwede magganyan. Noong araw, ng mga bata, meron isang anak ng mayor. He had bodyguards, he knows beating people about. He gets away with it. And that's become a habit in our country. It's become part of the culture, a bad culture, na porque ikaw nakapwesto, you're beyond the law. And that is not acceptable. That is why it hurts us when they see hindi natin mahuli si Bato. PNP, kilala yan. Hindi natin mahuli yung mga pulis na nagtatago, yung mga politiko na nagtatago, because it weakens the respect of the country in terms of enforcement of law. They say, oh, how can I invest and how will I be protected? If some big guy comes in and starts mouthing me, paano naman ako? This guy is above the law. So, bad for investments, bad for our culture, bad for justice.
Now let's go to the Blue Ribbon Committee. You were chair once of this committee. Ano pong assessment ninyo sa flood control scandal, yung investigasyon sa flood control scandal?
Remember that the report of Mr. Lacson, Senator Ping Lacson, is partial. I used to do that. Because that means marami pa akong kahabulin, no? Even my report on Farmally was partial. Because there are still many unopened issues that you're waiting for new evidence to come out. So, in my mind, ang problema dyan, kita mo even the senators shirk from their responsibility na dapat pipirma sila sa report. Kung pipirma sila sa report, hindi naman kailangan sabihin yes or no or what. They can say, yes, I concur. Or yes, with reservations.
Right.
Or no. Pwede gawin yun. But they cannot shirk from their responsibility to vote. They have to vote because that's what the country expects from them. Ikaw ang nilagay namin yan, tapos atras ka. Hindi pwede. So, kailangan talaga, tama si Ping doon, dapat pumirma. And besides, says, no, ladies, when you are investigating in the Blue Ribbon, which is what I have always maintained, that's why we're still pursuing Farmally, anybody who goes out there, he has to take an oath. And even if the Senate does not confirm the investigation, the fact that you took an oath can be used against you in a court of law. Because you swore an oath, and then kakausapin ka ng abogado later on, sinabi mo ito, binabago mo ba yung statement mo? You are now skirting perjury.
But Senator, as we know, there have been changes to the committee chairmanships, and now Senator Pia Cayetano heads the Blue Ribbon Committee. What happens if they decide to set aside or abandon the findings of the former chairperson, Senator Ping Lacson?
It's the same thing. All the statements there are under oath, and the courts would recognize a statement under oath. They cannot just set aside. It's now a question of credibility na papasok. So why are you setting it aside? That's another conversation. And if they're saying, sinasabi nila kay Ping, bakit hindi mo hinahabol si Romualdez? But from what I hear, he has initiated actions against Romualdez, and at the same time, big fish talaga yan. At sabi ko nga noong una, hindi mo na muna yung small fish. Pag nahuli mo yung small fish, may magsasalita na dyan. Bibilis ang takbo dyan pag kami nahuli ka yung small fish. That is why, in Farmally, we concentrated on Lao. We concentrated on the Indians. And once we got the evidence, for example, of cars, of money being passed around, of them trying to escape, then makikita mo, saan sila tatakas? Sa Davao. Sinong mayor ng Davao? Si Vice President, di ba, at that time. At sino ngayon ang siga sa Davao? Doon sila tatakas. Kaya pinalabas muna namin sila para makita na talagang pinapatakas sila ng some authorities in Davao. So it's really important na all this is part of a big, big investigation. And they cannot just set aside anything. Pagka hindi yun, they would have to impugn the veracity of what was stated before they can set aside the findings.
Okay, and do you think because of all the hullabaloo in the Senate as of late na medyo nakalimutan na, nakaligtaan ng mag-focus doon sa investigasyon sa flood control?
No, I don't think so. That is something so big, you cannot put it under the rug. It's like family. You cannot put it under the rug. In fact, I've spoken with the ombudsman about that. And to his credit, he asked me, ano bang gagawin ng family? I think you have a lot. You can go to case court anytime and pursue the case because it's very, very clear. Pareho ang pattern, parehong dinadaya, parehong inaalis yung mga focus doon sa dapat huliin. And yet, pareho rin, yung sinasabi ng Presidente Duterte at that time, walang kasalanan niya si Michael Yang. Kilala ko yan, mabuting tao yan, negosyante yan, nilagay niya sa cabinet niya, di ba? Foreigner na nga eh. So, bakit hindi hinahabol? Ganun din si Lin Wei-xiong, yung asawa, tumubang congresswoman. And Lin Wei-xiong, kasama na naman sila dalawa ni Michael Yang, doon sa statement ni Madriaga na sinasabi na inutusan si Madriaga ni Duterte na kumuha ka ng pera para matayo mo yung Inday Group, which he did. And under oath yun, 175 million at isang 120 million. So may problema sila doon. Kaya napakalakas ng kaso doon sa impeachment because pag ilalabas mo yung mga yan, may mga oral testimony, mahirap magpaliwanag dyan. You'll have to impugn the credibility of the witness. And then you'll have a paper trail that you have to follow. Kaya nga, yung Blue Ribbon Committee, if they bury a previous report, external government agencies are unaffected. The Office of the Ombudsman or the Department of Justice can still use the public testimonies. The courts can use the public testimonies, transcriptions, and evidence gathered during those past public hearings to file independent criminal charges against corrupt officials.
All right, Senator, we thank you once again for sharing your insights with us. This is one for the books. Talagang historic na malalagas ang Senado because of senators facing corruption charges. Thank you so much.
But just pahabol lang. Supposing nga, let's say, 6 senators were in a plane, nag-crash, o gagawa na paraan ang Senado para may adjust yung number yung base vote. Hindi naman pwedeng either magkakaroon ng election kung malapit pa, kung there's enough time to conduct an election to continue with that. But you cannot dismiss it by any way. Thank you. I hope I was able to answer difficult questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Senator Dick Gordon. This is the big story on One News. We're not yet done talking about senators, particularly Senator Bato de la Rosa, who's still nowhere to be found after days of manhunt. Are authorities closing in? Find out when we return. The big story is back with law enforcers yet to catch Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. The manhunt has already covered several locations. First on the list, targets in Luzon. On Wednesday, May 27, the search took NBI and PNP personnel to Parañaque, Bulacan, and Pampanga. Authorities searched a house in Angeles, Pampanga, reportedly owned by the uncle of Senator Robin Padilla, a known De La Rosa ally. But that yielded negative. Senator Bato was also nowhere to be found in other locations, with authorities even checking the former police chief's ancestral house in Davao del Sur. De La Rosa's wife Nancy posted a photo of the operatives doing the manhunt, which is said should be within the bounds of the law. The PNP said they were only conducting a site inspection. Meantime, the CIDG has recommended to the Justice Department the filing of charges against Senator Robin Padilla for obstruction of justice. That's for helping De La Rosa leave the Senate premises on May 14. CIDG Director Robert Morico described the alleged participation of Padilla as indispensable cooperation.
By indispensable cooperation, it will not happen without him. Hindi po yun incidental. It's not a mere hitch ride. It is plano, well-planned, well-coordinated, kasi yung may backup vehicle pa.
And when asked if there was a connection between the Senate shooting and De La Rosa's alleged escape, the CIDG chief had this to say.
So let me just say na, two incidents po yon.
Yes.
They are related. But the investigation is already with the Department of Justice. And I do not want to preempt.
And in case you missed it, the Trial Chamber 3 of the International Criminal Court has set former President Rodrigo Duterte's trial for November 30. Nevertheless, there will be fresh health assessments and medical clearances to check if Duterte is indeed fit to stand trial. The details in this report.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte was still a no-show at the first status conference of Trial Chamber 3 of the International Criminal Court. This is for the crimes against humanity case filed against the former president stemming from his bloody drug war. Attorney Peter Haynes, who replaced attorney Nicholas Kaufman, appeared on Duterte's behalf. According to the prosecution, they need until September 30 to complete the disclosure of evidence. After that, they said they would be ready to begin the trial proper on November 30. But Duterte's lawyer said the standard timeline is to begin the trial 3 months after the disclosure of evidence. That means, he said, the trial should start on December 30.
We will be ready for whenever you want it to start, but our anxiety is that that should not be a date which leaves us with perhaps 1 or 2 months after the end of prosecution disclosure.
The Counsel for Victims, meanwhile, agreed that the trial may begin on September 30 or November 30. But they said it would already be too long if the trial is pushed back to 2027. The trial chamber gave the prosecution until August 24 to submit its witness list and reports. The prosecution plans to present 70 witnesses, including 31 insiders. Their evidence list also includes around 197 speeches. But for Judge Joanna Corner of Trial Chamber 3, that numbers appears to be too many, especially if the testimonies would only be repetitive.
197 speeches seems to me, on the face of it, it's probably not the right word, but it seems to me too much. And I think you need to consider fairly carefully whether you need all 197.
That will be narrowed. That we will make careful selections. We don't intend to introduce, I'm sure, all 197 of those.
The prosecution will also use video-linked testimony for witnesses who cannot go to the ICC. The language to be used during the trial was also discussed. The prosecution proposed that the proceedings be broadcast in Tagalog to make it more understandable.
It would be much, much better for the population and the victims and people interested in this case if it could be broadcast in Tagalog. Some of the poorer community, where many of the victims are from, do not have a good command.
But will Duterte need an interpreter?
He won't need interpretation.
For now, Judge Corner has also asked accredited experts to review again the former president's fitness to stand trial. This comes after a new and separate request from the defense on May 25 to have Duterte undergo another medical assessment.
The chamber is obliged to make a separate finding. I rather think we'll wait and see what the reports say before we make such a decision.
In the middle of the status conference, Trial Chamber 3 agreed to set November 30 as the start of the trial proper.
Meantime, here are the other stories making headlines this Thursday. Victims of the collapse of a 9-story building in Angeles City, Pampanga will receive cash assistance from the Labor Department. 15,000 pesos will be given to each family of workers who died in the incident. The death toll from the tragedy has risen to 5, while 15 are still missing. And in another development, the Education Department is preparing for the June 8 opening of classes through its Oplan Balik Eskwela program. DepEd Secretary Sonny Angara said 16 government agencies and private utility partners will help ensure a safe and orderly return to school. Classes this year will open under the new 3-term academic calendar, with the school year running until April 8, 2027. And on to the weather, Tropical Storm Jangmi has slightly intensified ahead of its expected entry into the Philippine Area of Responsibility, where it will be given the local name Doming. As of 3 p.m., the storm was spotted 1,235 kilometers east of southeastern Luzon, packing maximum sustained winds of 75 kilometers per hour and gusts of up to 90 kph. Jangmi could intensify into a severe tropical storm by Friday and may develop into a typhoon by Saturday. Meantime, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources conducted a tree transplanting activity in Loton, Manila. That's amid growing backlash over the tree cutting along Quirino Avenue for the proposed Southern Access Link Expressway or SALIX project. The agency earlier suspended the tree cutting operations for review following criticism from environmental and church groups. Officials said the transplanting or earthballing of Nara trees is part of environmental safeguards. However, the DENR said some trees could no longer be relocated due to decay and structural defects.
Expert findings kasi tayo dun sa mga puno na kapag transplant sila, hindi na magsusurvive kasi yung iba decaying na sila and therefore very low survival rate na kapag transplant natin. But yung ating strategy ngayon is to pursue yung earthballing and then yung rehab. Okay? Kasi itong ginagawa natin is we're rehabilitating. We want to make sure that yung mga naputol na puno ay may kaukulang mga planting tayo na gagawin.
You're still watching The Big Story, and when we return, the silent fight against obesity, which is now affecting 40% of the Philippine population. Don't miss that conversation. Welcome back to The Big Story. Manila and Tokyo have inked several key agreements, including deals on defense, maritime cooperation, and taxation. That's during the meeting between President Bongbong Marcos and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. The two leaders signed agreements on sharing confidential military information, delimiting maritime boundaries, avoiding double taxation, and the transfer of an Abukuma-class destroyer to the Philippines. They are also expected to release a joint statement after their meeting.
President Marcos ended day 2 of his state visit to Japan with a state banquet hosted by Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako at the Imperial Palace. There, he reaffirmed the country's commitment to international law and peace in the Indo-Pacific region. He also underscored the long-standing partnership between Manila and Tokyo in security, infrastructure, agriculture, and disaster resilience. Meantime, the Philippines also secured around 210 billion pesos or $3.4 billion in investment pledges during a roundtable with Japanese business leaders. The deals include smart city projects, urban development, and business expansion initiatives expected to boost industry and create thousands of jobs in the Philippines.
We are entering a new chapter. A chapter defined not only by friendship but by deeper integration, shared growth, and a common belief in the future. You are no longer just investors in our economy. You are the builders of our economy.
Now, in other news, one recent study reveals over 40% of Filipino adults are overweight or obese. This reportedly costs the Philippines 1.9 trillion pesos yearly. Let's talk about obesity care tonight with internal medicine specialist Dr. Cristiana Vida Montefalcon. Dr. Montefalcon is also the medical lead for Novo Nordisk Philippines. Welcome to the Big Story, Doctora.
Thank you, Ma'am Ces. I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Now, 40%? Really? Yes. That bad? Samantalang maraming nagugutom. Pero teka muna. Unang-una, how do you determine if you are obese? Is the body mass index or BMI a good way to measure?
Yes, so that is now currently the most easily accessible way to determine if you're living with obesity. Sabi po nila na if your BMI computed is more than 30, then you are classified as living with obesity. But actually, we have some studies na here in Asia, no, sometimes they are now recommending that the BMI be lowered, in fact, to 25. And that is because somehow Asians also have higher incidence of comorbidities related to obesity.
Than Westerners?
Yes, than Westerners. So
why is that? Because we have smaller frames siguro? Or?
Could be, ma'am. But I think there's a concept called thin outside, fat inside.
May ganun pala.
Yes.
You can be skinny,
yes.
pero
inside.
puro tabaka.
Opo. And that's because fat is found in different parts of our body. So meron po yung fat na bumabalot po sa ating organs.
Visceral fat.
Visceral fat, exactly. Alam po ni Ma'am Pauline. And that's actually a fat that could be more detrimental to a patient living with obesity.
What could be the reason for this increase in obesity among Filipinos? Western diet.
Yes, possibly. That's one. But one thing that I would also want the Filipinos to understand is that obesity is considered a disease and therefore hindi lang po siya lifestyle yung cause niya. No? So there are other factors. In fact, it's a very complex disease that science is now telling us na there are other factors like genetics. No, there are other factors such as not just lifestyle like diet or how we move every day, but
the sedentary lifestyle.
There's a physiology behind it. So, and that's sort of why that's the big story for us. No, we want to tell the Filipinos that obesity is more complex than you think, and we want to remove the stigma so that patients who are living with obesity can seek help.
I wanted to ask you nga if there is a shame factor as to, because I think it's pretty common that knowledge that obesity is a disease, pero you don't really seek out a doctor. And also, if you were to, and if you don't have the shame factor, what kind of doctor do you go to?
That's right, Ma'am Sean. So there is a shame factor. So it's called obesity stigma. And it's something that I think any patient living with obesity experiences from day to day. It could look like, being passed over a job because of how they look. It could be also problems sa love life, no? And with regards to that, any doctor should be equipped to manage a patient with obesity. So it's important that these patients seek help. But siguro yung pinaka expert dito, it would be the endocrinologists, because this obesity is a metabolic disease, and sila po talaga din yung specialists on the
Doc, how
subject matter.
important is early detection as well? Because if you wait too long, there's a possibility also of other comorbidities that could arise.
That's right, Ma'am Pauline. Actually, there is also a recent study. It was done in the Asia Pacific called the Action APAC study, and it found that for a patient, the average wait time for them from the beginning of the time that they experience problems with their weight and the time that they seek consultation, 6 years. So imagine they wait 6 years, nag-yo-yo sila in between, they diet and exercise, lose weight, and then bumabalik. And that's the problem, because we also want to advocate for early management, that's guided. So I would urge patients as well to talk to their healthcare professionals about it if they are experiencing issues with their weight.
Doc, what if you notice it in your child? Is it fair to bring the child to the doctor? Kasi I know 40% of Filipino adults, but also some say na it starts with habits and it starts from childhood as well. So do you recommend that children also seek help? Because obviously they're not going to want to go to the doctor, so somebody has to drag them there.
That's right. And siguro, in our culture sa Filipinos, diba, when a child is, sabi nga nilang they call it chubby, cute siya, diba? But actually, in the Philippines, statistics say that 8 out of 10, there are 8 out of 10 Filipino adolescents naman who are faced with obesity. 8 out of 10 of these.
You mean that's very high?
That's 80%.
Yes. So these children, eventually, they develop obesity in their life. Kumbaga, they bring obesity into adulthood, and that is also concerning. So for parents who are concerned with the weight of their children, I understand the concern, no? I don't want my child to, to struggle lifelong. So that is also something that they should talk to their pediatricians about. We have also specialists, na pediatrician and pediatric endocrinologists who can help as well.
Well, there is a study, Doc, that without intervention, 44.8 million adults will be affected by 2040. That's pretty alarming, right? 44.8 million adults. What can be done to maybe slow that down or even address the problem?
I think awareness is really the first step. And for us to realize that obesity should be a shared responsibility, for patients to realize that they're not alone as well, that they can talk to somebody. We have so many resources now, not just from getting help with their diet, getting help with their lifestyle, but also we have medications now that are available that were not available in, let's say 50 years ago. And these innovations are actually what's helping bring down that statistic.
How? What are these medications? What do they target?
Okay, so there are different medications, Ma'am says, no? So there are medications that target, let's say, the fat metabolism. But I think what I can talk about also is a medication that I'm very familiar with, and that is the GLP-1 receptor agonists. You may have heard of it from social
everywhere.
media. Yes. So it's really a buzzword, no? And so, Ma'am says, you asked how it helps. So what it generally is, it's that GLP-1 is actually a hormone na ginagawa ng katawan natin naturally. And it helps us with regulating our appetite. So after we ingest food, yun, produce yung hormone, and then it tells us na, oops, wait lang, you're full na. Now, the problem with the natural GLP-1 is that it's very short-lived. Mga 1 to 2 minutes lang po siya nag-exist sa body natin.
Pwede mong i-ignore.
Yeah, exactly. And so what scientists have done is that they've developed the GLP-1 into a molecule that can be given to a patient that will may prolonged life. So what it does is that it helps with our
so you feel full
for longer. And on top of that, there are certain GLP-1s that can also help with food noise. Food noise is that it's more pronounced, in patients with obesity, because this is the noise that they feel about food, no? Because
is that psychological?
It is in a way. It's also physiological in a way, because they found that in patients living with obesity, mataas yung kanilang kumbaga frequency,
Craving.
of food noise, no? Kumbaga lunch pa lang iniisip mo na snack or dinner, parang ganon.
Kumakain ka pa lang, iniisip mo na yung kakainin mo mamayang gabi.
Yes, that's
Ganon.
food noise. That's food noise, yes.
But are they safe? Kasi, Doc, yun yung usapan niya, diba?
Yes.
You have so much info online.
Yes.
And parang ano lang yan with politics, same with medical, diba?
That's true.
May mga anti-vaxxer, anti-ganito.
Yes.
What's the real deal?
Okay, so are they safe? I learned this in medical school. Wala pong gamot na 100% safe, because every medication has a mechanism of action, and therefore, meron talaga silang mga side effects. So
Risk-reward ang babalansehin mo. Yan ang natutunan natin sa COVID vaccine.
Exactly.
Diba?
And that's also why it's so important to talk to your healthcare provider, because they also have to help you with that informed decision of balancing the risk and reward. So, ibig sabihin po nun, the GLP-1s actually, in particular, the molecule that I have a lot of data on, it's the semaglutide molecule. It has a lot of data behind it. Kumbaga, it's been studied extensively.
This has to be prescribed.
Yes.
Cannot
yes, ma'am,
buy
yes.
over the counter.
Yes, definitely. This is a prescription medication, and therefore, kailangan po talaga din ng, kasi nga, obesity is a chronic disease. You have to manage it chronically with a healthcare provider.
But I guess the whole ecosystem has to adjust and change. For instance, we're bombarded with ads on social media also about, all these food that's not good for you. Also, what's available in the marketplace.
And what's affordable.
Yes,
Super. Yes. So I'd like to talk a little bit about affordability, because I understand how hard it is also to maintain, let's say, a healthy diet when everything like salads are so expensive, right?
Magtanim ka!
Now,
And if you're not a green thumb like us.
yeah, so, but so those are the
Madali lang
struggles.
tumubo ang kangkong at kamote.
Or malunggay, di ba? But, beyond that, I think what's also important, because you mentioned also the study on the cost of obesity. In fact, in the study, it was found that 1.9 trillion, it may be costing the Philippines 1.9 trillion pesos annually. But if you sort of scale it down to a patient living with obesity can spend around 64,000 pesos per year due to obesity-related costs alone. No? And if you factor in comorbidities, that can go way up to 200,000. I'm talking about hypertension, diabetes, kidney disease. So obesity kasi is so complex na it's also connected to a lot of things like cancer.
Well, we've run out of time. This is sana marami pa tayong information that we want to get from you. But thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you
That
so
was
much
internal
also.
medicine specialist Dr. Cristiana Vida Montefalcon.
Thank you so much.
All right, and before we go tonight, a proud moment for this young Filipino talent making waves globally. Our big picture is Pinay tennis superstar Alex Ayala, who has been named to Forbes Asia's 30 under 30 list for sports and entertainment. Forbes described Ayala as one of the region's next icons, citing her breakthrough run at the 2025 Miami Open, as well as her role in sparking greater interest in tennis in the Philippines, where basketball and volleyball remain dominant sports. The 21-year-old tennis star is currently ranked number 37 in the world, and her French Open campaign ended this week after a straight sets loss to American Iva Jovic. But also making the Forbes list is Filipino pop star Zach Tabudlo, alongside young Filipino entrepreneurs, advocates, and tech founders recognized for their work in business, mental health, youth development, and social impact across Asia. Wow, congratulations to Alex Ayala and of course all the Filipinos.
Right.
Deserved.
Oh. All right, and that's it for the big story this last Thursday of May. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are one news. Let me say it now the way we normally say it.
Wala nang wrapping.
All sides, all the time. Have a good night.